Dragon SpaceX on the big loop undock sequence commanded.
And you just heard confirmation of the initiation of the undocking sequence that has begun, and the umbilicals are retracting. Hearing good calls on the movement of those umbilicals so far.
Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
Umbilical demate was successful and as expected. So the umbilical has been retracted, and the first set of hooks, that first set of 6, are beginning to retract. Again, the umbilical has fully retracted, and the first set of 6 hooks of 12 are also retracting. Each of these sets of hooks takes a little bit more than 2 minutes to fully retract. And on your screen, you can see the team here in Mission Control Houston. We're currently still in what we call integrated operations while we're working alongside SpaceX and Axiom, but following the undocking and exit from the approach ellipsoid this morning, we'll turn it over to Axiom and SpaceX to take it the rest of the way home as Crew Dragon Freedom prepares to splash down off the coast of Panama City, Florida this evening at 10:04 p.m. Central Time.
Since we've gone past what we were expecting, we would like them to just try one more turn at their current setting again.
That first set of 6 hooks continuing to retract.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, first set of hooks open and nominal.
Dragon copy.
And you did hear the confirmation there that the first set of hooks have successfully retracted, everything continuing to go as planned. The second set of hooks are now in the process of retracting.
Negative flight to capital.
This second set of hooks will take about 2 minutes as well to retract. And we're about halfway through that second set of hooks. Second set of hooks continuing to retract.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, all hooks open. Dragon separation confirmed.
And we do have confirmation of Crew Dragon Freedom undocking at 10:05 a.m. Central over the Tasman Sea. And you're seeing a video of that separation on your screen right now. So Dragon has started to push itself away from the International Space Station, and with that, Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Alcarni, and Rihanna Barnaby have completed their journey aboard the International Space Station. Again, confirmed separation at 10:05 a.m. Central Time.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, depart burn 0 nominal.
Very copies, and thank you for the hospitality. ISS.
And we are hearing good confirmation of those undocking burns. You also heard some more.
And Ax-2, it was a pleasure having you on board. We really appreciate all the hard work. Congratulations on an outstanding mission. Thank you for all your great generosity. It was greatly appreciated, and I wish you calm seas and calm winds for your splashdown this evening. Take care. Fly safe. Station, please. We appreciate it all.
And Houston copies.
And some kind words there between Axiom-2 Commander Peggy Whitson and Steve Bowen, who's on board the International Space Station monitoring today's undocking. Now, lit up against the International Space Station there, you just saw the flashes from the thrusters as those departure burns continue to take place. These short burns help increase the speed at which Dragon is flying away from the space station and start to send it on a trajectory up and over the International Space Station. And there you can see those thruster firings lighting up the Soyuz vehicle docked to the International Space Station. The next burn that we're tracking is the departure burn, which will help increase the initial opening rate between the Crew Dragon and the space station. This burn will last about 21 seconds. And this departure burn 1 is slated to begin just about 2 minutes from now. Following this burn, the crew will start to take off their spacesuits until it's time to deorbit. They do wear their launch and re-entry spacesuits during the dynamic phases of flight. However, during this 12-hour journey to splashdown, they'll have the opportunity to take their spacesuits off and get comfortable. And then they'll put their spacesuits back on ahead of splashdown later this evening. Now 1 minute until the departure burn 1 begins. Again, this 21-second burn is going to help continue to propel Freedom away from the International Space Station. And shortly after the departure burn occurs, Freedom will exit the keep out sphere. The keep out sphere is an imaginary sphere which is 200 meters in radius around the International Space Station, and it's one of several safety zones that's set up to govern visiting spacecraft either arriving or departing the space station. Before moving into the keep out sphere, spacecraft have to be configured where they would not cross the imaginary boundary for at least 4 orbits, even if the spacecraft were to lose all of its maneuvering. Depart burn 1 underway. And you are seeing some of those thruster firings on board Dragon. Again, this burn is using the Draco thrusters,
Dragon
and that burn did just complete and all went
departure burn
smoothly.
1 nominal, and all Dragon systems look healthy, good on dock. At this time, you are go to DOF suits in 4.012, and finally a reminder that the big loop will be deactivated following Dragon's exit from the approach ellipsoid.
Dragon copies. Go for suit DOF.
And with that call out of a successful departure burn 1, the crew now has the go to get out of their spacesuits and get comfortable for the 12-hour journey until splashdown. Continuing to get some views. Continuing to get some views of Freedom as it backs away from the International Space Station. And we just got word that Dragon has exited the keep out sphere. Again, that's imaginary sphere. It's that imaginary sphere 200 meters in radius around the International Space Station. And on your screen here, as you continue to see Freedom back away, you're actually able to see those windows on the vehicle and can kind of make out the crew inside as they continue to get smaller and smaller, making their way back home.
Dragon copies. The next major milestone that we are tracking this morning is when Dragon exits the approach ellipsoid, or AE.
This is another imaginary shape. It's a three-dimensional ellipsoid measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. It's in the same family as the keep-out sphere. One of the key differences with the approach ellipsoid is that vehicles outside it have to be on what we call a 24-hour safe free drift trajectory. And we're getting some really great views of Dragon here as it continues to undock from the International Space Station. You can see the nose cone is open and the trunk is attached. Before splashdown, the nose cone will close and that trunk will be deorbited.
So flight with that will have forward actions once we're back out at the mod kit with the Cyrosa. He can continue on to R4. This will require the contingency fit pin.
Okay, yep.
All right, Woody, we're going to come back to this bolt or the turkey timer later in the evening with an opportunity to check it out. For now, when we leave R4, this will be another 245 turns, but your settings are now alpha 3, counter 3.
Flight Commander, goal is to have the ARD tab secured from rotation and the bolt preloaded. So if we can confirm that, we can press on for block 1 or step 1 in the crib sheet. So given the report of torquing out 11.9 foot-pounds at 4 turns, do you have sufficient confidence? No, Flight, we would expect that if the ARD tab were rotated and basically loading earlier than it's supposed to. Okay, EE.UU, where's the
So flight per crib sheet, it would be back out 1 turn at Bravo 1 and then reattempt.
And Flight, we could also ask the crew if the ARD tab is loose. If it is not loose, then we know it's preloaded and we're good to press. EVA, what do you think?
And flight, I think that's a good first question if they can see if there's any movement.
There's no movement. You good?
And with everything continuing to go smoothly here in Mission Control Houston, we are waiting for Dragon to exit that approach ellipsoid following the on-time undocking this morning at 10:05 a.m. Central Time. Dragon has completed a series of burns to back it away from the International Space Station, and again, everything going A-OK this morning here in Mission Control Houston. So I'm going to toss it over to Hawthorne to give us an update, and so they can share a little bit about what it was like to see undocking from their perspective.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. If you're just now joining us, you are watching the undocking of the Dragon Freedom vehicle carrying the Ax-2 crew members as they make their way back down home to Earth. And just as Dragon fully autonomously flew to the International Space Station, it is fully autonomously flying them back down to Earth as well. So all these maneuvers that you're seeing are fully autonomous, and we have completed a few burns. Once the vehicle is out of the keep-out sphere, then it can perform its deorbit burn and make its way back down to Earth. So what you can expect as Dragon returns is the trunk will be jettisoned. Once we jettison the trunk, then the vehicle can reorient itself for making its way back into the Earth's atmosphere, and then the drogue and main parachutes will deploy, and the crew will safely touch down in the ocean off the coast of Florida. Now, just as a reminder, this is the second flight for this Dragon, specifically Dragon Freedom, and it first flew on Crew 4 in April in 2022. This is also the 10th human spaceflight mission in the last 3 years.
Wow, exciting stuff. Well, and for Axiom Space, these missions serve as a precursor in developing the teams, systems, and relationships necessary to operate our own Axiom station currently under construction. For Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, and Saudi national astronauts Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi, this has been an incredibly successful mission. As the second private mission to the International Space Station, Axiom-2 is also an important step for Axiom Space and its academic and industrial partners to perform proof-of-concept studies and cutting-edge advancements in microgravity. During their time on the orbiting laboratory, the Ax-2 astronauts successfully executed over 20 STEAM outreach engagements and 20 different microgravity experiments, as well as 8 media events. They utilized novel technologies on orbit that could be used for future human spaceflight pursuits and benefit humankind on Earth. Returning with them in the SpaceX Dragon Freedom is more than 300 pounds of cargo and important data that will impact our understanding of human physiology on Earth and on orbit. And beyond all that, they also had a few moments to take in a view unlike any found on Earth, looking at the planet from 250 miles above it. So for more details on the incredible work performed by this crew and on orbit, check out the axiomspace.com/AX2 research website. It's going to be pretty incredible to see all of the work that they perform on station brought back and those data analyzed and everything really given sort of its full breadth of knowledge once they get back here on Earth.
Yeah, Duke, this has been an incredible mission so far, and we're going to send it back over to Houston, Texas Mission Control with Sandra Jones. How's it going, Sandra?
Thanks, Jesse and Duke. Everything's still continuing to go smoothly here in Mission Control Houston. We are standing by for Dragon Freedom to exit that approach ellipsoid. Again, this is a 4 kilometer by 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer zone around the International Space Station, in which a vehicle must be on a 24-hour safe trajectory from interfering with space station, even if it lost all maneuvering capability. We are just a few minutes away from that expected approach ellipsoid exit. Now, once that approach ellipsoid exit does occur, the team here in Mission Control will continue to monitor every step of the way, but the prime responsibility once they exit approach ellipsoid will be on SpaceX and Axiom Space. So again, just a few minutes away from approach ellipsoid exit, we are targeting that exit for 10:25 a.m. Central. Another thing that will happen once the crew exits the approach ellipsoid is that integrated communications loop called the big loop will be taken down, as we are no longer in those integrated communications. And at this time, Crew Dragon Freedom is 916 meters away from the International Space Station. Just about a minute until expected exit from the approach ellipsoid.
Dragon, SpaceX, comcheck on Dragon to ground.
SpaceX Dragon, comm check. How do you read us on Dragon to ground?
Hey Peggy, we've got you 5x5 on Dragon to ground over, I'm assuming, the cabin mic. At this time, we've just exited the approach ellipsoid, and Dragon is on a safe free drift trajectory, and I'm letting you know that we're going to take down the big loop here shortly.
Okay, copy. Thank you.
And we did get that confirmation that Dragon has successfully exited the approach ellipsoid and is continuing their journey back to Earth. So with that, from here in Mission Control Houston, we will conclude our coverage of this mission and hand it over to the teams at SpaceX and Axiom to take it from here. Thank you so much for joining us for our coverage today of hatch closure and undocking. Until next time, this is Mission Control Houston.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra. Now that Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Alkarni, and Rayana Barnawi have departed the International Space Station, it will only take them roughly 12 hours until they make their way back down to Earth. Next up, the crew will doff their spacesuits to get a little bit more comfy for flight. After a brief off-duty period, the crew will then begin final in-cabin preparations. And approximately 6.5 hours from now, they will don or put back on their spacesuits and begin final preparations for deorbit, entry, and splashdown. Our teams here on the ground will continue to keep an eye on the weather to ensure a safe return to Earth for Dragon and the Ax-2 crew.
And should the current projections hold, starting at